I never thought a blind date would turn my whole life upside down. My name is Maya Reed, a 22-year-old black student from the Bronx studying social work at NYU. I've always believed kindness is the strongest force in the world. I spent my weekends volunteering at a shelter for families who had nothing, bringing them warm meals and listening to their stories. Because someone once did the same for my mom and me after my dad left. That Friday night, I was nervous but hopeful. My roommate had set up the date with a guy named Marco who supposedly worked in finance. He's nice, she promised. Just go and enjoy. I arrived at the fancy Italian restaurant in Midtown Manhattan wearing my simple black dress and my favorite hoop earrings. The hostess led me to a quiet corner table. The man waiting there wasn't Marco. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with sharp cheekbones and dark hair that fell just right. His eyes locked on mine the second I sat down, like he'd been waiting his whole life for this exact moment. "I'm Dominic Valentino," he said, voice low and steady. "Marco had an emergency. He asked me to come instead. If you want to leave, I'll understand." Something in his gaze made me stay. We talked for hours. I told him about my classes, about the kids at the shelter who called me a Miss Mia, and how I saved every penny to help my little brother Jamal with his asthma medicine. Dominic listened like no one ever had. He didn't interrupt. He didn't look at his phone. When I asked about his work, he just smiled and said, "I handle family business." His smile was gentle, but his eyes held shadows I couldn't read yet. By the time dessert came, my heart was beating faster than it ever had. I felt seen, really seen, for the first time. What I didn't know was that Dominic Valentino was the ruthless mafia king who ruled New York's underworld with an iron fist. And in that single evening, the moment he saw me walk through the door, he fell in love with me at first sight. The night felt like a dream. Dominic asked about my dreams, and I told him how I wanted to open my own community center one day, a place where kids like Jamal could get tutoring, meals, and hope. His face softened in a way that made my chest ache. "All you give without expecting anything back," he said quietly. I laughed. "Kindness is free, Dominic. The world needs more of it." He paid the bill without looking at the total, then offered to walk me home. Outside the restaurant, the city lights glittered like stars. Just as we reached the sidewalk, a black SUV screeched up. Two men in dark suits stepped out fast. Dominic's hand tightened on my arm, protective, not rough. "A change of plans," he murmured. "Get in the car, Maya, please." Before I could ask why, he guided me inside. The doors locked. The car sped off. My stomach dropped. "Oh, what's happening?" I whispered. "What's happening?" I whispered. He didn't answer right away. His jaw was tight. When we finally stopped, we were in front of a towering glass building overlooking Central Park. He led me into a private elevator that opened straight into a penthouse bigger than my entire apartment building. Marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, art that probably cost more than my tuition. "Stay here tonight," he said. "It's safer." I laughed nervously. Safer from what? His eyes met mine, serious now. "From the people who saw us together. My world isn't like yours, Maya. I won't let anyone hurt you." That was the first night he locked the door behind him. I was alone in a stranger's palace, heart racing, wondering how a blind date for his friend had turned into this. Morning light poured through the windows. I tried the door. Locked. My phone was gone. Panic hit hard. When Dominic came in carrying a tray of fresh fruit, coffee, and my favorite blueberry pancakes from the diner near campus, I backed away. "Let me go," I said, voice shaking. He set the tray down slowly. "I can't. Not yet. Last night, a rival crew spotted us leaving the restaurant. They know your name now. If I let you walk out that door, they'll use you to get to me. I won't risk that." I wanted to scream. Instead, I asked, "Who are you really?" He sat on the edge of the couch, looking tired for the first time. "I'm the man who keeps this city's shadows in line." "People call me ruthless." They're right. But yesterday, watching you talk about helping those kids, something broke inside me. I've never felt that before. Days blurred. He brought me my textbooks, my laptop for online classes, even a new hoodie from the shelter so I wouldn't feel completely cut off. So, every evening he sat with me and listened. He never raised his voice. He asked about Jamal's asthma and quietly arranged for medicine to be delivered to my mom's door without her knowing who sent it. I started to see cracks in his armor, moments when the ruthless king looked like a man who was lonely beyond words. The penthouse became my whole world. I paced the rooms, angry one minute, confused the next. Dominic never forced anything. He gave me space, but he was always there when I needed to talk. One night, I broke down crying about missing Jamal's school play. Without a word, he pulled out his phone, set up a video call, and stood silently in the corner while I watched my brother perform. "You didn't have to do that," I whispered afterward. "I did," he said. "Your happiness matters to me more than you know." That was the twist I never saw coming. The man who locked me up was also the man who moved heaven and earth to keep my little piece of normal alive. I started noticing how his staff looked at him with respect mixed with fear, but when he spoke to me, his voice was always soft. He told me stories about growing up with nothing, how the streets taught him to be hard so no one could break him. For the first time, I saw the boy behind the king. Weeks passed. I stopped fighting the door. Instead, I started asking questions. Dominic answered honestly, even the dark parts. He showed me the secret ledger where he anonymously donated millions to the exact shelter where I volunteered. "I read about you in the newsletter once," he admitted. "Full. Your name was listed as Volunteer of the Month. That's why Marco's date was arranged. I sent him because I was too afraid to meet you myself." My heart flipped. "You fell in love with the picture of me helping kids?" He nodded. "I fell in love with the woman who gives everything and asks for nothing. Then I met you in person and realized the picture didn't do you justice." That night, we talked until sunrise. He let me call my mom and tell her I was safe staying with a friend. His kindness wasn't loud. It was quiet, steady, selfless. The Ruthless Mafia king was protecting me with his life while trying to prove he was more than the monster the streets made him. An unexpected twist came on a rainy Tuesday. One of Dominic's men burst in saying a rival gang had targeted my mom's apartment building. Dominic didn't hesitate. He left the penthouse for the first time in weeks, took his best people, and made sure my family was moved to a safe house before any harm could come. When he returned, his shirt was torn, knuckles bruised, but the look in his eyes was pure relief. "They're okay," he said. "Your mom and Jamal are safe." I threw my arms around him without thinking. In that hug, I felt his heartbeat racing, not from danger, but from the fear of losing me. That was the moment I realized the lock on the door wasn't a cage. It was a shield. And the man holding the key was falling apart trying to be worthy of the girl who only ever wanted to help others. The days grew softer. Dominic started cooking for me. Simple pasta dishes his grandmother taught him. He asked me to teach him how to volunteer at the shelter online. I showed him stories of the families we helped. His eyes misted over when he heard about a single mom who reminded him of his own mother. "I've taken lives to protect what's mine," he said one night. "But you make me want to save them instead." That confession cracked me open. I saw the selflessness he hid from the world, the way he paid for kids' surgeries without ever taking credit, the way he kept his own mother's memory alive by funding an after-school program in her old neighborhood. The Ruthless King was more human than most men I'd ever met. The emotional climax came when Jamal had a severe asthma attack and the hospital said they needed a specialist no one could afford. I was frantic, locked in the penthouse, helpless. Dominic walked in, saw my tears, and didn't say a word. Within hours, he had the top pulmonologist in the country on a private jet. He paid every bill, arranged private transport, and sat with me on video call while the doctor treated my brother. No threats. No power plays, just pure, selfless compassion. When Jamal was stable, Dominic finally unlocked the main door. "You're free to go," he said, voice breaking. "I never wanted to keep you prisoner. I only wanted you safe. But I can't pretend anymore. I love you, Maya. From the second I saw you walk into that restaurant, your kindness saved me." I stood there, tears streaming, realizing the man who locked me up had just shown me the greatest act of love anyone ever had. I didn't leave, not that day. We talked for hours. He told me he was ready to step back from the darkest parts of his world if I would stay. I told him my heart had been his since the night he listened, like I mattered. We laughed about how a blind date for his friend became the love story neither of us saw coming. He promised to use his power for good from now on, funding the community center I dreamed of, helping kids the way I always tried to. The Ruthless King had found his humanity in the heart of a black student who only ever believed in kindness. Life didn't become perfect overnight, but it became ours. Dominic kept me safe while slowly changing the rules of his world. I finished my degree and opened the community center with his quiet support. Jamal got the best care, my mom finally breathed easy, and every night Dominic came home to me, not as a king, but as the man who chose love over power. We built something beautiful out of what started as a locked door and a single look across a candle-lit table. In the end, the Ruthless Mafia King didn't just claim he loved me. He proved it with every selfless choice, every quiet sacrifice, every time he chose my light over his darkness. And I, the girl who believed kindness could change the world, learned that sometimes the greatest love stories begin with the most unexpected blind date. He's a ruthless mafia king. He locked me up, then claimed he loved me. Mafia boss went on a blind date for his friend, but fell in love with black student at first sight. Emotional story part 11. The days after I chose to stay in the penthouse with Dominic felt like stepping into a new chapter that neither of us had planned, but both of us desperately needed. The morning sun streamed through the massive floor-to-ceiling windows casting golden light across the marble floors, and I woke up to the soft sound of Dominic moving around in the kitchen area, his broad shoulders relaxed in a way I had rarely seen before. He was humming an old Italian tune under his breath, something his grandmother used to sing when he was a little boy trying to survive on the tough streets of Brooklyn before the family business swallowed him whole. I sat up in the enormous bed, still wearing one of his soft black shirts that smelled like his cologne and safety, and I watched him for a long moment, my heart swelling with a mix of wonder and fear, because loving a man like Dominic Valentino meant loving the shadows he carried with him, but also believing in a light he was starting to let shine through. Because of me, he turned around carrying a tray with fresh coffee, scrambled eggs with spinach and tomatoes, just the way I liked them, and a small bowl of mixed berries. He had learned my favorite so quickly in the short time I had been here. His eyes met mine, and that same intense look from the blind date returned the one that said he had fallen hard and fast. The moment I walked into that midtown restaurant, dressed in my simple black dress, ready for a date with his friend Marco instead of the Ruthless King himself. "Good morning, Maya," he said, his voice low and warm like melted chocolate. It still sent shivers down my spine, even after everything we had been through, the locking, the fear, the late-night talks, and the way he had quietly moved heaven and earth to save my family without ever asking for thanks. I smiled back, feeling the warmth spread through my chest, and replied, "Good morning, Dominic. You didn't have to make breakfast again. You know, I could have helped." But he shook his head, gently setting the tray down on the bed beside me, and sitting on the edge, his large hand reaching out to tuck a stray curl behind my ear with a tenderness that always surprised me coming from a man who ruled New York's underworld with an iron fist. "No," he answered softly. "You deserve to be taken care of for once. Maya, you spend your whole life giving to everyone else, at the shelter, at school, to your mom and Jamal. Let me give to you now." His words wrapped around my heart like a warm blanket, and I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes, because no one had ever said that to me before, not like this, not with such quiet selflessness. I took a sip of the coffee, perfectly sweetened with just a touch of cinnamon, the way I preferred it, and we ate together in comfortable silence at first. But soon the conversation flowed naturally, as it always did with him. I told him about my dreams for the community center again, how I wanted it to be a safe haven for kids in the Bronx where they could get tutoring, hot meals, counseling, and someone who believed in them the way my old mentor had believed in me when my dad walked out and left us with nothing. Dominic listened intently, his dark eyes never leaving my face, and when I finished, he nodded slowly, his expression serious but full of quiet determination. "I can help make that happen," he said without hesitation. "I have resources, Maya, connections that can turn that dream into reality faster than you think, but only if you let me, only if it stays true to your vision of kindness and humanity, not power or control." I reached across the tray and took his hand, squeezing it gently, feeling the calluses from years of a hard life, but also the warmth that was starting to soften those edges. "Thank you, Dominic," I whispered, but promise me it will be about the people, not about proving something to the world or to your enemies." He gave me a small smile, one that reached his eyes and made him look younger, less burdened by the weight of his empire. "I promise," he replied. "My world has been about control and fear for too long. Your world is about love and giving. I want to learn from you. I want to be better because of you." That moment felt like a turning point. The ruthless mafia king who had locked me in this penthouse for my own protection was now asking to be changed by my beliefs in selflessness, and it made my heart ache with hope and a deep growing love for him. The next few weeks blurred into a beautiful routine filled with small acts of kindness that showed me Dominic was serious about changing. Dominic started waking up early to review reports from his legitimate businesses, the ones he was slowly shifting more of his focus toward, away from the darker sides of his family operations. He would sit at the large oak desk in the corner of the living room, glasses perched on his nose, which always made me smile because it humanized him so much, and he would quietly transfer funds to the shelter where I used to volunteer, making sure they had enough supplies for the winter months without ever putting his name on it. When I asked him why he did it anonymously, simply shrugged and said, "Because real kindness doesn't need recognition, Maya. It just needs to happen. And I know how much that place means to you. So it means something to me too." His words always hit me right in the soul, reminding me that beneath the ruthless exterior was a man who had been starved of genuine humanity for so long, and now he was soaking it up like a sponge through our late-night conversations and shared meals. I started teaching him little things about my life, the simple joys that had kept me going through tough times, like how my mom and I used to make peanut butter sandwiches with banana slices when money was tight and pretend they were gourmet treats, or how Jamal and I would dance around the living room to old Motown records to forget about the bills piling up. Dominic would listen with such intensity, his hand resting on mine, and then one evening he surprised me by pulling out an old vinyl record player from storage and playing some of those same songs. He had tracked them down just from the stories I told him. We danced slowly in the middle of the penthouse living room, his strong arms around my waist, my head resting against his chest, listening to his heartbeat steady and sure. And for the first time I felt completely safe, not because he had locked the door, but because he had unlocked his heart to me completely. One unexpected twist came when one of Dominic's longtime rivals, a man named Victor, who controlled parts of the harbor shipments, sent a message through back channels threatening to expose Dominic's softer side if he didn't pull back from certain territories. Dominic read the message in front of me, his jaw tightening, the old ruthless fire flashing in his eyes for a moment. But then he looked at me, sitting there with my textbook open on my lap, studying for the sire. My final social work exams, and something shifted in him. He crumpled the paper in his fist, and instead of ordering retaliation, he picked up the phone and arranged a quiet meeting on neutral ground, not to fight, but to negotiate a truce that would protect the innocent people caught in the middle. Why? Including the families in my old neighborhood. I watched him prepare for that meeting, pacing the room in his tailored suit. But this time, he wasn't carrying the usual weapons hidden in his jacket. He was carrying a folder of proposals for shared community initiatives, funded jointly to reduce violence that hurt everyone. Dominic came back from that meeting with a split lip and bruised knuckles, but a look of quiet triumph on his face. Victor had agreed to stand down in exchange for a cut of legitimate shipping profits, and a promise that Dominic would use his influence to keep certain streets safer for kids walking to school. It wasn't perfect, but it was a step toward the humanity I had been showing him. And when he told me the details that night, while I gently cleaned his wounds with a soft cloth, he held my hand to his cheek and whispered, "You're changing me, Maya, every single day. I never thought I could choose peace over power. But for you, for the life we could build, I'm willing to try his vulnerability. In that moment, the ruthless king, laying down his armor because of love and selflessness, made tears roll down my cheeks, and I kissed him softly for the first time, with all the emotion I had been holding back, feeling the warmth of his lips and the way his hands trembled slightly. Was afraid this dream might slip away. The emotional depth between us grew even stronger in the following days. As I finished my degree remotely with Dominic's support, he had set up a quiet study nook for me with all the books and resources I needed, and he would bring me snacks at odd hours making sure I stayed hydrated and took breaks to stretch. He even started reading some of my social work textbooks himself late at night. When he thought I was asleep, I caught him one time highlighting passages about community building and restorative justice, his brow furrowed in concentration, and when I asked him what he was doing, he looked up with a sheepish smile and said, "I want to understand your world better, Maya. I want to be the kind of man who deserves to stand beside a woman like you, not just protect her, but lift her up and help her dreams come true." His dedication to learning and growing for me was one of the most selfless things anyone had ever done, and it filled me with a profound sense of connection that went beyond the initial spark from that blind date. One night, after a particularly long study session, Dominic surprised me again by arranging a private video call with Jamal and my mom, who were still in the safe house he had provided. They looked happy and healthy. Jamal excitedly telling me about his new school and how the doctors had adjusted his asthma medication so he could play soccer without worrying. My mom thanked me for being safe and strong, but her eyes kept drifting to BWWM. Dominic in the background with a mix of caution and gratitude. Dominic stepped forward, then speaking directly to them with a humility I had never heard from him before. "I know I'm not the man you probably imagined for your daughter," he said quietly, "but I love Maya with everything I have, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure she and your family are protected and supported, not because I have to, but because I want to, because her kindness has shown me there is a better way to live." My mom's eyes softened, and she nodded slowly, saying, "Just take care of her, Dominic. She's got the big heart in the world, and it needs someone who won't break it." "I promise, Dominic," replied, his voice thick with emotion. And in that moment, the bridge between my old life and this new one with the Mafia King felt a little stronger, built on acts of quiet compassion and mutual respect. As the weeks turned into months, Dominic began to slowly dismantle parts of his more dangerous operations, redirecting his men toward legitimate security firms and community outreach programs. He funded anonymously at first, but then more openly when he saw the positive impact on the neighborhoods that had suffered under Josiah. The old ways of fear and control, I accompanied him on a few low-key visits to local centers where kids were receiving new books and sports equipment. Thanks to his quiet donations, the children's laughter filled the air, and Dominic stood back watching with a small smile on his face, his hand finding mine and squeezing it gently. "This is because of you," he whispered in my ear. "You showed me that real power comes from lifting others up, not keeping them down." His transformation wasn't instant or easy. There were nights when old rivals tested his resolve with threats or attempted takeovers, and Dom would pace the penthouse, wrestling with the instinct to respond with the ruthlessness that had kept him alive for so long. Every time he would come to me sitting on the edge of the bed or the couch and talk it through, asking for my perspective on how kindness could prevail even in the face of danger, I would hold his hands and remind him of the stories from the shelter, the families who rebuilt their lives through what he is, through community support and small acts of humanity. And slowly he started choosing de-escalation over destruction, negotiating instead of eliminating, finding ways to protect his people without spilling unnecessary blood. One particularly tense evening, a rival crew tried to ambush one of Dominic's warehouses. But instead of ordering a full retaliation, he instructed his men to secure the area and offer the attackers a chance to walk away if they laid down their weapons. Most did, surprised by the unexpected mercy, and those who didn't were handled with minimal force. Dominic came home that night exhausted, but with a sense of peace he hadn't felt in years. He pulled me into his arms, hugging me tightly, and murmured, "I did it, Maya. I chose your way, the way of selflessness, and it worked. No one had to die tonight because of me. Your belief in humanity is saving lives, including my own." His words brought me to tears, and we stayed like that for a long time, just holding each other. The ruthless king, who once locked me up for protection, now finding freedom in the compassion I had shared with him. The bond between us deepened further when I finally graduated, and we celebrated quietly in the penthouse with a small dinner. He had prepared himself pasta with his grandmother's secret sauce and a bottle of fine wine. He toasted to my future and to ours, saying, "Maya, from the moment I saw you on that blind date, I knew you were different. Your light, your kindness, it pulled me in and refused to let go. I locked you up to keep you safe, but you unlocked something in me I thought was long dead love, hope, the desire to be a better man. Thank you for seeing past the Mafia King to the man beneath." I raised my glass to him, my heart full, and replied, "And thank you, Dominic, for letting me in, for choosing to grow with me instead, of staying in the darkness. We can build something beautiful together, a life where your strength protects and my kindness heals." The community center project moved forward with incredible speed, thanks to Dominic's resources, but always guided by my vision. We found an old warehouse in the Bronx and transformed it into a bright, welcoming space with classrooms, a kitchen, a small medical clinic for basic checkups, and a playground outside where kids could play safely. Dominic worked alongside the contractors, rolling up his sleeves and helping with painting and assembling furniture. His presence there surprised everyone at first, the big, powerful man with the intense eyes, but the children quickly warmed up to him, especially when he started bringing in boxes of new soccer balls and basketballs and teaching them simple tricks he remembered from his own rough childhood. One little girl named Aisha, who reminded me of myself at her age, with her bright smile and curious questions, asked Dominic why he was helping, and he knelt down to her level, his voice gentle, and said, "Because a very special woman taught me that helping others is the strongest thing you can do, and I want to be strong like that like that. You and your friends." His answer melted my heart, and watching him interact with the kids with such patience and selflessness showed me how deeply he had changed from the man who ruled through fear to one who now led with quiet humanity and love. The grand opening of the center was a day filled with all joy and emotion. The neighborhood turned out in full force, families, kids, elders, all celebrating the new beacon of hope in their community. I gave a short speech about how kindness connects us all and how this place was built on the belief that everyone deserves a chance to rise. Dominic stood in the back, his eyes shining with pride. And when I finished, he came up to me, wrapping me in a warm embrace in front of everyone, not caring about his reputation or the whispers that might spread through his world. "This is your dream, Maya," he said softly, "but I'm honored to be part of it. You've shown me that true legacy isn't about power or money. It's about the lives we touch and the good we leave behind." His public display of support and affection marked another turning point, solidifying his commitment to a new path, one paved with compassion rather than ruthlessness. Life with Dominic continued to unfold in beautiful, unexpected ways. We traveled quietly to places he had always wanted to show me, but never had the chance because of his dangerous lifestyle. A weekend in a cozy cabin upstate where we hiked through the woods and sat by the fire talking about our futures. He shared stories of his mother, who had worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table, and how her quiet strength had inspired him even as he chose a darker road. I shared more about my father's absence and how it taught me to never give up on people even when they disappoint you. Those conversations wove us closer together, building a foundation of trust and mutual understanding that went far beyond the initial attraction from that blind date. Evening back in the penthouse. After a long day at the center, Dominic surprised me with a small velvet box, not a ring but a delicate necklace, with a pendant shaped like an open book, symbolizing the knowledge and dreams I was helping others achieve. He clasped it around my neck, his fingers brushing skin, sending warmth through me, and whispered, "This is for you, Maya, because you opened the book of my life and rewrote it with kindness and love. I don't know what the future holds with my past still lingering, but I know I want to face it with you by my side." Always his gesture was so thoughtful, selfless, that I turned around and kissed him deeply, feeling the passion and emotion that had been building between us for months. We made love that night, slowly and tenderly, in the big bed with the city lights twinkling outside, a perfect blend of the fire that had started on that blind date and the Juden. Deep emotional connection we had nurtured through trials and growth the following months brought more challenges as old enemies tested Dominic's resolve to change, but each time he faced them with a new approach, using his influence to broker peace deals that benefited the communities rather than just again his own interests. He even started mentoring some of his younger men, teaching them that strength could come from protection and support, not just violence. One of them, a tough kid named Luca, who had been with Dominic since he was a teenager, confided in me during a visit to the center that watching the boss change because of me had given him hope for his own future. Luca said, "Miss Maya, you did something no one else. Could you made the king see that there's more to life than ruling through fear? Your kindness rubbed off on him, and now it's rubbing off on all of us." His words filled me with a quiet pride, not in any power I held, but in the simple truth that one person's selflessness could ripple out and touch so many lives. Dominic and I grew even closer during this time, sharing quiet evenings cooking together, watching movies from my childhood favorites like The Color Purple and old Italian films he loved. We laughed at the silly parts, cried at the emotional ones, and always ended the night wrapped in each other's arms, talking about the day and dreaming about the future. The Ruthless Mafia king had become my partner, my confidant, and the love of my life, a man who had locked me up, fear for my safety, but had set both of us free through the power of love and humanity. As time passed, the community center flourished, becoming a hub for positive change with programs for job training, parenting classes, and youth leadership, all inspired by the themes of kindness and selflessness that had brought Dominic and me together. He continued to support it generously, but always let me lead the vision, never imposing his old ways of control. We even started a scholarship fund for students like me who wanted to pursue social work or community development, naming it after both our mothers to honor the strong women who had shaped us in different but equally important ways. One special day, we took Jamal and my mom to visit the center. Jamal, now healthier and full of energy, ran around the playground with the other kids, while my mom helped in the kitchen preparing meals for the after-school program. She pulled me aside at one point, her eyes misty, and said, "I was worried at first about you and Dominic, Maya, but seeing how he looks at you, how he's changed, and how he supports your dreams without taking them over, I can see the love is real, and it's good for you both." I hugged her tightly, grateful for her blessing and for the way our family had been brought into this new chapter of healing and hope. Dominic joined us then, carrying a tray of cookies he had baked with the kids earlier, his smile wide and genuine as he interacted with my family like he had always been part of it. The evening ended with all of us sitting together, sharing stories and laughter. The kind of simple human connection that Dom had craved for so long without even realizing it. Through every challenge and every joy, Dominic continued to prove his love through actions big and small. He would leave notes for me around the penthouse, reminding me to take breaks or telling me how proud he was of the work I was doing. He arranged surprise deliveries of my favorite flowers or books he thought I would like, and he never stopped listening to my ideas and fears with the same intensity as on that first blind date. His selflessness extended to everyone around him. Now, as he worked to make amends for past actions in quiet ways, helping families affected by the violence of his old life without seeking forgiveness or recognition, just doing what he believed was right, because I had shown him the way one quiet night as we lay in bed with the city humming far below us. Dominic turned to me, his hand gently tracing patterns on my arm, and said, "Maya, I never imagined that going on a blind date for my friend would lead me to the woman who would save my soul. You walked into that restaurant and everything changed. Your smile, your passion for helping others. It hit me like nothing else ever had. I locked you up because I was terrified of losing the light you brought into my dark world, but now I see that your kindness was never meant to be contained. It was meant to set us both free. I love you more than I can ever express, and I will spend every day showing you that through my actions, not just words." His confession brought fresh tears to my eyes, and I pulled him close, whispering back, "I love you too, Dominic, the ruthless king who became my hero not by force but by choosing humanity and love. Every single day, we fell asleep like that, entwined and at peace, knowing that our story, which started with a locked door and a single look across a table, was now an ongoing journey of growth, compassion, and unbreakable bond. The months continued to unfold with more moments of tenderness and shared purpose. Dominic began to fully transition his empire toward legitimate enterprises, focusing on real estate developments that included affordable housing and community spaces in areas that needed them most. He consulted with me on every major decision, asking for my input on how to make them more humane and inclusive. Watching him evolve from the man who ruled with fear to one who built with hope was the greatest gift our relationship had given me, and I knew in my heart that the blind date that was never meant for him had been destiny all along, bringing two very different worlds together through the power of an instant connection and the slow, beautiful work of kindness, changing a heart. One act at a time, we faced new challenges of course. As word of Dominic's changes spread, some in his old circle resisted, feeling threatened by the shift, but he handled each situation with a calm strength that came from within, supported by the love and values we shared together. I stood by him, offering encouragement and perspective, always reminding him that true leadership came from lifting others rather than crushing them, and he did the same for me, supporting my work at the center and my continued studies as I pursued further certifications in nonprofit management. Our partnership became a beautiful example of how love could bridge even the widest gaps, how selflessness could heal old wounds, and how humanity could thrive even in the most unexpected places. Like the heart of a former Ruthless Mafia king and the soul of a black student who only ever wanted to make the world a little brighter, one small act at a time, as we look toward the future together, planning expansions for the center and dreaming about possibly starting a family of our own one day. I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought us here, from that fateful blind date to the locked penthouse, to this life of shared purpose and deep emotional connection. Dominic had claimed he loved me, and every day he proved it, not with grand gestures of power, but with quiet, steady kindness that had become his new strength. And I, in turn, had found in him a partner who cherished my humanity and amplified my dreams, making our love story one that would continue to inspire us both for years to come. The story of the Mafia boss who fell in love at first sight with the black student on a blind date meant for his friend was far from over, but every chapter was filled with the kind of heartfelt moments that reminded us both that love, kindness, and selflessness could transform even the darkest of worlds into something beautiful and full of light. And so we kept moving forward, hand in hand, heart to heart, building a legacy not of fear but of hope, one selfless act, one compassionate choice, and one loving day at a time.